There's a demon who lives in room number 9. I had my suspicions that something was off when I first moved into this small apartment building. It's a single story with a tiny mailroom, an equipment closet, and 6 apartments. 6, not 9, but 6. And yet after my room, room number 5, the next door reads 9. I informed the landlord of this immediately, but he has yet to fix the problem and claimed that it wasn't even in use. I thought it was very odd. Why not rent out another apartment to make more money? Was it used by the landlord for storage? No. Now I am absolutely certain that the landlord made a deal, or simply dares not mess with the demon in room number 9. I'm absolutely sure of it now that Johnny Tallarms is dead. He's the man who lives in room number 2 and who I had the pleasure of speaking to upon first moving into this apartment. I'm not quite sure how tall he is, but the nickname came to me when I saw him instinctively ducking to re-enter his apartment. Johnny is a hugger. While he was quite friendly, perhaps he was a bit too friendly, because a firm handshake was all I was expecting, and he gave me a good, solid clap on the back. More importantly, Johnny also found room number 9 to be odd. He agreed that it would be a simple fix, but didn't dare mess with the door because of the strange feeling it would give him. No doubt the demonic presence within seeks to ward others away. Johnny also claimed that no one had ever lived in that room, and he'd been in the apartment for over a year. When I jokingly mentioned that we should pick the lock and take a little gander ourselves, he shuffled his oversized feet and mumbled some sort of non-committal response. It was a little disappointing, but I assured him it was just a joke and changed the topic to the weather. This conversation wasn't all that long ago and was the start of everything. Mr. Tallarms is dead. It was the silent sort of death that no one else heard, but I felt it in my bones. The dread that came to me when I woke up the next morning was unmistakable. When I passed by room number 2 to fetch my mail, I noticed the door open, just a crack. I could feel the hairs along my neck rising, and my knuckles were white from how tightly I gripped the handle of my cane. Surely it was just an accident. Perhaps he's out getting the mail as well, I reasoned with myself. But there was no sound from the mailroom. The apartment during the later mornings was eerily quiet. Perhaps I should have just shut the door, but something egged me to step inside. Very, very cautiously, I nudged the door open a little more with my cane and found the door without even the slightest of creaks. Poor Johnny Tallarms wouldn't have even had a warning and the fearful drip of something unwanted invading his home before he was struck. And he was most certainly struck. It's impossible to forget the scene that greeted me upon slipping into his apartment. The television was still on, and the lamplight cast a gentle orange glow over the old gray sofa in his living room. To the right, I could see a rather tidy kitchen, looking as if the man didn't think to cook at all. Down the hallway to the left, I walked towards the farthest door, a door that was wide open with another soft lamplight within, and it was there that I found Johnny Tallarms. The demon had to have struck Johnny when his guard was down, for the man was crumpled over his bed in his birthday suit, with only a towel discarded near his feet. The bed was still wet and sticky from the blood that had gushed from his head, where it caved in from the demon's strike from behind. Johnny perhaps had tried to defend himself because there was a bloody knife discarded across the floor, but against the demon? What hope did the man have? Lacerations marked the man's arms where the beast must have tried to ravage him, and there was an especially severe gouge in the man's hand, where perhaps he tried to fight the monster's clamping fangs. Even a large man like Johnny would be hard-pressed to win a fight against the demon, and now room number 2 was a grisly murder scene. I thought of calling the police, but what use would it be? No one would believe this was the work of a demon. No one could help Johnny now. And little did I know, this was just the start of the demon's rampage. A week later, Miss Sassy Feet was the next victim. She lived in room number 4, right next to mine, and was accurately named for her uncanny ability to walk towards another in such a way that had you knowing her mood before she even spoke a word. I had run into her quite often already since moving into the apartment, and more than a handful of the times I was the target of her scorn. Once it was because I had the television on too loud. Another time was due to the peculiar smell that she claimed came from a meal I cooked the night before. No, Sassy Feet wasn't exactly rude about her confrontations, but it was very exhausting to talk to her. I suspected the woman was simply stressed herself, constantly coming and going from her home to whatever long-houred job she had, although I never bothered to ask. I didn't even think to ask her how she felt about door number 9, but her remark about the smell had me thinking of the demon. Perhaps it was the scent of sulfur that she had gotten a whiff of and mistaken for my room. I was next to the demon after all. A constant, pressured weight at the back of my mind. I meant to ask her more about the smell, but it was too late. An evening where she usually played music and spoke loudly upon her phone, the walls are a bit thin, simply didn't occur, and again, just like with Mr. Tall Arms, I couldn't shake this uncomfortable feeling from myself. Her front door was locked, but I went around the outside of the apartment late one night and peered through her windows. Her apartment had an outside patio and a sliding door, which I found to be unlocked, and with a little effort, I was able to open it. She had just fallen victim to the demon, just like Johnny Tall Arms. I had a feeling she saw the demon coming, although I am far from any detective. Her body was collapsed in the living room with her face caved in gruesomely from the side and the back. Her hair covered much of her face, but I could imagine her horrified eyes as the demon pounced and gnawed on her face. How awful a terror for one to have in their last moments. It didn't end with Sassy Feet. Room number 3, Baker Bonnie, was claimed not much later. It was her death that shook me the most, given how this squat old lady had been nothing but kind to me. Her nickname was best suited due to the fact that she was often baking sweets in her apartment, and she flooded the place with the rich aroma of bread or pastries. I'm not sure what she did with everything she baked, but several times the woman offered a few of the delectable treats to me. She liked to joke that I was far too skinny and that some weight would be good for me. Although I did make the mistake of one time mentioning that if I were too skinny, then she could stand to eat less of her own treats. Even with that mistake, Baker Bonnie was a kind woman. I tried to warn her about the demon in room number 9. I told her how I believed it had gotten the others, although I dare not tell her the grisly details, lest I frighten her. At first, she didn't believe me. However, after my insistence, she did mention how late at night she could hear rattling in the hallway, like a lumbering beast. Thunk, thunk, clack. Thunk, thunk, clack. Thunk, thunk, clack. I warned her to keep her door closed if she ever heard the noise. It was another piece of the puzzle about this demon, but I was beginning to realize that such pieces might be in vain. How did one fight a demon? Was I planning to do it myself? My fears bubbled and simmered into despair when dear Baker Bonnie became the next victim, despite my best efforts to warn her. I can only assume that the demon, in a fit of irony, devoured her body. When I did not smell the sweet scent of bread and found her door unlocked, I dared not look deep inside for her. Instead, I opened her door, saw nothing in my glance over her kitchen in the main room, and decided to venture no further. How could I? The demon was closing in and had claimed a sweet, sweet soul. It has been several days since Bonnie most assuredly died. The last person in this apartment complex with me is Smokey, and I fear he will be the next victim. Smokey is a rather ornery man with wiry brown hair peppered in gray and steel eyes that offer no warmth. The few times I attempted to talk to him, Smokey, from room number 1, he told me off and to mind my own business. No doubt to return to his home and angrily smoke his cigarettes, drink a beer, and watch some sort of sport. Baseball, I would guess. But he doesn't live in room number 5. He's the farthest from room number 9 that perhaps he can't feel it weighing down on him like it does with me. I can feel the demon's presence growing and swelling, and I realized far too late that it was gaining power with every victim. The stench of sulfur grows from that door, and I can imagine the blood seeping out from beneath the crack. Already I dared to approach it, only to lose my nerve when I touched the handle and found blood there. The very sight had me retching when I returned to my room, especially when I realized the sticky claret had also spread to my cane. What does the demon hope to achieve? Is it gathering strength to return to hell? Does it seek sustenance from our foolish, unsuspecting souls? Or perhaps it is a merely sick, twisted thing that simply enjoys the suffering of others. Although even now as I write this, I realize trying to understand the mind of a demon is a fool's endeavor. I know what will happen. It's as clear as day and written all over my wall. Smokey will die next. Will his head be bashed in? Will he be stabbed? Poisoned? No. Smokey may prove a deeper challenge, and I fear the demon will call upon its truest power. Fire. In a morbid fashion, the fact is almost poetic given the man's habits. Perhaps this is why Smokey was saved towards the end, for a demon's favorite play, after all, is simple: the chaotic beauty of fire. It will call upon hellfire and burn everything to the ground. I tried to warn Smokey, but he will succumb to his fate like all the others. When the embers flurry into the air and the flames subside, I will be as far away from this place as I can be. I will pray that the fires consume the demon, that damnable door number 9, and that it will burn this entire nightmare to ash. Let it be nothing more than a dusted memory in the wind. Yet I cannot help but fear that the demon will follow me, and deep, deep down, I fear there will always be a door number 9.